Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Trust you know the Lord is with you wherever you find yourself scattered today, and that you know that his presence with you is more than enough for whatever you might face today. Well, we are in the middle of March. I know you thought we were in the middle of Mark, but we're also in the middle of March, and that means basketball madness. And last night I was able to go to Point Loma Nazarene University, my alma mater. Point Loma was playing Cal State University San Bernardino for the Western Division Championship in Division II men's basketball. The winner would go to the Elite Eight, the national tournament. And so it was an intense game. Point Loma ranked nationally number 4. Cal State University San Bernardino ranked number 6. And the game was at Point Loma. They were the number 1 seed. They were hosting it. And I was blessed to be able to go with a couple of my roommates from back in the day, Terry Mowers and Steve Christensen. And so we were at the game, and it was one of the best games I've ever seen, ever witnessed. And what happened was that Point Loma, to make a long story short, Point Loma lost. But their top player, he'd been player of the year, his name was Caden Anderson, and he went down 3 minutes into the game, already had scored a couple of three-pointers and with a sprained ankle, and he was hobbling, he was out. And he made a comeback, just a really valiant effort, one of the most heroic efforts I think I've ever seen, and ended up leading the game, scoring 27 points. But it just wasn't enough. Point Loma was down by 15 with about 15 minutes to go in the game, and they rallied, and they played absolutely heroic. One of the guys who played super heroic down the stretch, his name is Shamrock Campbell. Sham had hit a couple of just incredible threes to pull the game back within 2 points with about 5 minutes to go. And then his night kind of ended in tragedy. With under a minute left, he got a great defensive rebound and got fouled and in the bonus. And so he's shooting 1-on-1. Point Loma's first chance to lead the game since way back early in the first half. Scores tied 83-83. He has an opportunity to put us up by 2, and he missed. And still about 50 some seconds left in the game, but he just played so incredibly heroic and then ends in tragedy. After all those threes, crucial threes, missed free throws. And then Caden had played an incredible game. Again, 27 points basically on one leg. The injury, he was hobbling up and down the court, could not run. And he had hit some threes and hit inside baskets. I mean, he was just absolutely amazing in terms of his effort and the shots he was making. And Point Loma had the ball, 40 seconds left, and he had it on the right baseline, and he started to try to drive from the wing to the baseline, and his ankle just gave out, and he ended up slipping. He didn't lose control of the ball, but while he had the ball, he slid out of bounds. And so we were down by 2 at that point. They got the ball back, and they went, and we fouled, and they scored and made all their free throws. And so just an incredible effort, heroic, but what a tragic ending. His last play, basically losing his footing, sliding, falling out of bounds with the ball. Sham's last play, the missed free throw. And so I just think about that in terms of, just heroic effort, incredible teamwork, pulling together in spite of injuries and adversity, and just tragically coming up short. And all credit to Cal State University San Bernardino, very talented, very athletic, and well coached, and just an incredible basketball game. So, why am I talking about this? Well, as we were talking after the game and texting back and forth, even today, one of the things that caught our attention was just, how sad for the seniors that, it's over for them. For Sham, no chance of redemption. His last memory probably won't be the threes he made, but the free throw he missed. For Caden Anderson, heroic game, and yet such a tragic ending. Instead of being able to tie the game or put them up, a turnover is kind of his last main memory of the game. And so this heroic effort and heroic season, and yet such a tragic ending. And my one friend Terry was just saying how challenging it will be that there's no next season for these seniors, that was it. That's how it ends for them. No shot at redemption. It's over. And then SC, he responds back, well, on the unfortunate reality is that every season must end, basketball and otherwise. And it's like, he just took it to a whole nother level, that's pretty much how life is, that we have these seasons and they can be heroic seasons and heroic moments. And yet ultimately it ends in tragedy. It's over. And in this past year or so, he's had to bury both his mom and his dad. So the reality of death, the reality that seasons end, that life ends. And so just kind of wrestling with that today. And it's like you make all these threes to tragically miss a free throw at the end. You play this heroic game to tragically slide out of bounds with the ball at the end. Just couldn't do anymore. And in some ways, that's life, that we live so heroically only to have the tragic ending of death. And it just doesn't sit well. It's just not right. We weren't born to die. We were born to live. We weren't born to, have things end. We're born to keep on playing, to keep on going. And so it's so tragic when the season ends. It's so tragic when life ends. And even when somebody, dying at a ripe old age, there's still this deep sense of loss, that there's something tragic about it. Well, now we're going to shift from the middle of March and the middle of basketball madness to the gospel. And Jesus has been teaching that it's necessary for him to go to the cross and to die, and that on the third day he will be resurrected. And there's various ways to look at the necessity of his death. And certainly one of the most prominent ways is that through his death, sin is atoned for, and we can receive forgiveness and reconciliation with God and peace with God. But I think we can also go a little bit further in terms of not only does Jesus die an atoning death for sin, but Jesus fully enters into our plight. Jesus fully enters into our tragedy, life under a death sentence. And Jesus goes heroically to the cross to die tragically, a tragic ending to a great life. Jesus enters into our plight, fully human under a death sentence, so that we can be redeemed. He becomes one of us so that we can become like him. And Jesus is resurrected. He's raised, never to die again, never to be cheated by death again, but resurrected. His body that was tortured, crucified, buried, that body is resurrected. That body is raised, redeemed, and transformed. Again, the storyline includes a tragedy, but it doesn't end in tragedy. It ends in resurrection. It ends in redemption. And so that Jesus is raised and seated at the right hand of God and reigns, rules, and will one day return. And resurrection day, new creation. And so all the tragedy will be redeemed. And so Jesus becomes one of us, entering into our plight, our heroic tragedy, if you will, so that tragedy is not the last word. He becomes one of us so that we can become like him, victorious over the tragedy, victorious over death, experience full redemption. And I think that is really the hope of the gospel. Yes, it includes forgiveness for sure and peace with God, but the hope is even bigger, that death is defeated, that the tragedy is defeated and redeemed, and so that there is total victory. The grave gets nothing. And so every time we experience loss, every time we experience, tragedy, we go from the heroic to the tragic so quickly. My prayer is that that would point us forward to the hope that we have in Christ Jesus, that he knows our tragedies. He knows what it is to be under a death sentence. He walked it with us and walked it for us so that we could be resurrected with him, and that we could know his peace and his victory and his power, and the hope that we have, that tragedy, loss, season over is never the last word. So I don't know where you might be scattered today. I don't know if you're caught up in the madness like I am, but I hope that every time you experience loss, yes, we grieve, but I hope and pray that that loss just reminds us that Jesus entered into our plight, our tragedy. He lived it heroically, but it was still tragedy, so that we can be transformed and we can we can be made like him with the experience of resurrection, the hope of resurrection, I should say, and redemption as we place our trust in him. So wherever you find yourself scattered today, just remember, whatever loss you're experiencing doesn't have to be the last word, that in Christ there's redemption and the hope of resurrection. God bless, and have a hope-filled day.